All things are possible. I am the Christ. I am the light. All things are possible. I am the Christ. I am the light. All things are possible. All things are possible. How do you know all the words to all the songs that come up here and sing?
You know, I have never heard that song before.
What?
I have never heard that song before, but I just feel it. I was feeling it and the words were coming out.
This is a song by Greg's. I'll be up here singing something I pulled off the internet, and he's singing it. Or I would have written it this week, and he's singing it. Like, wow. Vulcan mind meld in a big way.
It was just spirit at work, I guess. I don't know.
That song's by Greg Stamper.
Greg
And
Stamper.
He's with the New Thought Church in New York. And it's a fabulous small church. He's doing amazing things. And you can find him on YouTube under New Thought Music.
New Thought Music,
Yeah,
wow.
you'll hear more of it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Loved it. I don't think I've ever heard that before, but I just loved it. It spoke to me, it really did. Well, thank you both. That was amazing, as usual. We have world-class music, I'm telling you. We are blessed. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. We've been working with a series of lessons based upon this wonderful work by one of my favorite Unity authors and teachers, Eric Butterworth. And Eric has had such a powerful influence, not only in my life, but he's had such a powerful influence on Unity, and it always really speaks to me in different ways. And this particular work has been one that really has spoken to me since I first read it, and boy, reading it again, it just opens me up all over again and also challenges me. You know, I think that's one of the powerful things about Unity is that, if you want to go to a place where you just always feel good and always feel comfortable, you can do that. But that doesn't necessarily always grow you, does it? And so one of the things that really I love about Unity is how graciously and how loving these principles are, and yet also how they lovingly kick our you-know-whats when we need it. Make sense? So I thinking about my lesson for this week, I recently got a lovely card from one of my Zen Buddhist friends. And it had a picture of him meditating, and it said, "Not thinking of you." I love that as well, and I really know that a big part of what Unity is about and what Unity teaches is how we move into that place of stillness and silence within ourselves, where we are connected with the source and the flow of all being and all good. And we've been working with this understanding of a concentric perspective. And the concentric perspective is really an idea and an understanding that all things that are going on in our life and world ultimately are emanating from the within to the without. And we have a tendency to get caught up in an energy and a thought and a belief system that it's the other way around. That somehow life, circumstances, the world are determining what's going on inside of us. And what Eric is trying to help us to understand is to move and shift from that perspective and really move into an understanding that there's a process that is continually at work. It's a creative process. It is the very essence of the creative process of the universe. And you and I are at the very center of that creative process, believe it or not. That divine essence, or the I am that Susan was singing about, is actually at the very essence and the very center of all that we are seeing and experiencing out here in life and in our world. That's a challenging thing sometimes, because I can tell you there are times when I very strongly feel like it's not about me, it's all about them. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's easy to get caught up in that and to believe that and to think that, and I know it's easy to get caught in that trap. Pema Chodron has a wonderful work called Don't Bite the Hook. And Don't Bite the Hook is really a more of a Zen kind of understanding also. And the hook basically is believing that somehow that something out here is what's causing my suffering. But what we're learning through these principles is to recognize that what we're seeing out here is simply a formation of something that has happened and is happening in some way on an internal level. I came across a little story about a guy who said that, my family, he says, explains, one father, he says, is in the family, I'm considered the patron of the arts. And what that means is I keep up the payments on the piano and the flute and the trumpet, and I run a chauffeur service and for all music lessons. And so one of the things that we're working with is an understanding of the spiritual principle that is actually at the essence and the heart of all of what Jesus really was teaching us. And I think it's not only what Jesus was teaching it, but I think it's really at the heart of spirituality. And there's one word and one term that comes to mind that I think it really boils down to. And that spirituality, really learning how to be in the presence and be a spiritual being that we are created to be, that's the essence of who and what we are. And yet, to really participate in that, there's a word, there's an energy, there's a consciousness that we are developing. And that consciousness is a consciousness that Eric calls a consciousness of giving. And the reality is, if we're not in an energy and a consciousness of giving, we are actually blocking off our divine possibilities. Do you realize that? It's in the very act of moving into that energy of giving, of being a part of a giving flow in life, that allows the unique character and qualities that are within each and every one of us to be experienced and expressed not only in those around us, but reflected back to us in life. And that if we are in that energy and that flow of giving, there's an amazing principle at work. And that principle at work is that as we give, so shall we receive. Now here's the tricky part about that, however. If we're in an energy and a consciousness of giving so that we receive, we're not really in a giving consciousness. Isn't that true? And, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not sure which is best. I think it's really a natural human condition in some ways. It is a part of our ego consciousness that basically we oftentimes learn about this understanding, this idea of giving from an egotistical place. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. One of the things that sometimes that we learn about being in a giving place or being the spiritual beings that we are, because there's a part of us in some way thinks that we're going to get something out of that. And it seems like a natural kind of thing. But in many ways, it is actually probably the very thing that's tripping us up. And at the same time, it can be one of those amazing processes that helps us to move beyond that thinking and that way of thinking, so that we move into a place that we are not giving from a place of thinking about what is going to come, but simply letting that giving consciousness be an emanation from the very essence of our nature. That it really is just a way for us to share and to give and to be in the world. Jesus kind of put it in these terms. He said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And so when we're in that energy of giving, regardless of how it's coming through, if we're in the energy of giving, thinking that, well, I'm going to give in this way and I'm going to get it back over here, we're kind of, in a sense, we're kind of blocking the flow. What we're really doing is, as Eric calls it, we're moving from an energy of and a consciousness of giving into an energy and a consciousness of getting. So let's just think about that from a spiritual and metaphysical perspective. You know, there's a law, there's a principle at work in the universe, and that principle and law is oftentimes been called the law of attraction. How many of you are familiar with that idea of a law of attraction? I kind of had a really interesting discussion with some of our Unity people. It's been a while now, but one of the things that really came to me in a moment of meditation is that there's some fallacy in this idea of the law of attraction. And the fallacy is kind of this. It's a belief system in some way that we are actually attracting something in our lives based upon our consciousness. Well, you say, well, that sounds like the truth. Well, in some ways, it does sound like the truth. But I'm going to suggest to you this idea of attracting still gives us an image that somehow there is something out here that we are drawing to us. Wouldn't you agree? And so it doesn't quite work to say it's a law of attraction. It really is a law of emanation. And the law really is not about what's being drawn to us. The law is what's really being poured out through us. You see, whatever is happening and working in our lives and the world is not really being attracted. It's actually being created. And maybe created is not the right word either. It's being shaped and formed, because the reality, if you get back to the essence of this whole creative process, the truth of the matter is nothing is ever really being created by us. It's being shaped and formed by us. The divine energy, the divine substance is being shaped and formed by us and brought into a particular way, in a particular form, based upon our energy and consciousness of it. And so everything that we're looking at and seeing out here in the world is actually an emanation of the divine in the form that has been shaped and formed through our energy and our consciousness. So we're seeing things not as they are. We're seeing things through the filters of this energy and this consciousness. And so if we are looking at the law of attraction in such a way that we feel that we are trying to somehow draw something into our experience, we're still kind of mixing up this understanding of the divine principle and the divine law. The divine principle and divine law is a law of giving. Now, there's part of this is that there's a receiving aspect of that. You know, you're in the very act of the giving, you're actually also receiving. In the very energy of giving, you're actually also receiving. But if our consciousness is tuned into more the right hand, what's coming in, we're kind of blocking our flow. It's important to be open to receive, but our energy is to focus our possibilities out in the world. One of the examples that Eric gives that I think is really valuable. So let's play with this a little bit. Let's say I have $1 and you have $1. And I give you $1 and you give me $1. So what do we have? We each have $1. Right? But if I give you love and you give me love, if I give you an idea, Eric says, and I like to think of it in terms of a divine idea. If I give you an idea and you give me an idea, what do we have? Do we have one idea? We have two. And let's say the two of us go and we give our ideas to two other people. What do they have? Well, that's 4 ideas, right? Well, let's say we do that to 8 people. So when you think about the idea of an idea, in Unity we have an understanding that there are, Charles Fillmore really taught this and talked of this, this understanding that ultimately he taught the idea of divine ideas. Divine ideas. And there are certain ideas that are universal. There are certain powers that are universal. There are certain characteristics within each and every one of us that are universal. And if we are giving of those kind of divine ideas, love is certainly one of those. Abundance is actually a divine idea. And so one of the things Eric is teaching us is to not be so concerned about what we are giving to or where we're giving to. See, it's valuable to kind of think about what you want to give to and where you want to give to. But one of the things he teaches is to set up a systematic practice of giving in some form, in some way. Now, he does talk about tithing as a systematic practice of giving. And tithing, he says, as though it's important to understand that tithing has oftentimes been presented as some kind of a magical law. And his view is that it's not a magical law in itself. Giving is the magical law. And the purpose of tithing is to really help us develop an understanding and experience of the consciousness of giving. And so just like meditation, there's a practice, I look at it this way. There's a practice of meditation and there's a principle of meditation. There's a practice of meditation, there's an experience of meditation. There's a state of meditation, you might say. And we practice meditation, and so we sit in a comfortable position. Sometimes, people have done different positions for that from thousands of years. Some people like it cross-legged. Some people like to just sit on the floor. Some like to lay down. I can't lay down and meditate. But the practice of meditation is all of those outer things that we do in order to move us into an energy and a consciousness of meditation. And the consciousness of meditation is a consciousness of connection, a consciousness of oneness, and there's a consciousness of being in that connection and in that flow. So we do all these outer things in a way to help us move into an energy and a consciousness. And he talks about tithing as one of those things. It's kind of like, he gives the example of riding a bicycle. Riding a bicycle is based on the energy and the consciousness of balance. And you keep the pedals moving in order to have that energy at work. And so part of what he's really teaching is an understanding that the idea of tithing is to help us develop and grow into an energy and a consciousness of a giving being person. Does that make sense? And so what we're really tuned into is not just practicing this idea of tithing as an idea that we're going to somehow get in return, but so that we can really truly shine who and what we truly are in our deep nature. He really, in the last chapter of this work, he talks about giving of the ultimate gift. And ultimately, the ultimate gift that Eric is really showing us and teaching us is that in the very essence of who and what we are the Christ. And that our practices are always about letting that come through us. And they come through us in those amazing divine ideas. The ideas of love, the ideas of abundance, the ideas of wisdom, the ideas of power and zeal and enthusiasm, these 12 powers that Charles Fillmore talks about, and the ways that we can show up and experience and express those in our lives. And so when we're looking at and thinking about this whole idea of concentrics is really the essence of spiritual practice. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that man is, and I'm not giving an exact quote, but man is so much more than what shows up between his hats and his boots. We are so much more than what's showing up between these physical forms or even these roles that we play in life. There was so much more than all those concepts and thoughts that we have about who and what we are. And the practice of giving is really about how to tune into and really find ways of expressing even more of those spiritual gifts that are at the very essence of our nature. You and I are created in the image and after the likeness of that which is always in the process of creating us. One of the things Charles says is one of the greatest ideas that has ever been articulated is that there is a God-sized person within the soul of every one of us. And Paul says it in words that Charles Fillmore said were the most important message of the Bible. Christ in you, your hope of glory. So the fullest life is that which is committed to giving that gift of the divine, the Christ, the gift of your transcendent self. And so whatever circumstance or purpose or experience that's going on in your life and world, the greatest question you can really ask is, as the subtitle of the book says, what's in it from me? What's in it from me? So it's important to keep centered in this conviction, this knowing that the kingdom of the divine is within you. And one of the ways that it shows up is by you seeing that divine in everyone. We see the world not as it is, but we see the world as we are. And if you want to see more life and abundance in your life, you want to express more of that life and abundance in some shape, in some form, in some way. If you want to experience more health in your life, tune your energy into those things that express more in health. If you want to experience more love in your life, Gandhi put it this way, be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the love you wish to see in the world. Be the peace you wish to see in the world. Be the abundance that you wish to see in the world. Be the strength you wish to see in the world. Be the compassion you wish to see in the world. Fill in the blank. Whatever it is that you want to see and experience more in the world, it is your role, your responsibility, you might say, but it's also your divine gift and your divine calling to bring that forth and to express it in the ways that you are being called to give, to share, to express, to be in the world. And I can tell you, it's unique. It is so it's amazing how disgustingly unique each and every one of us is. We're all just alike that way. Do you realize that? We are so amazingly, beautifully unique in how the gifts of that Christ light comes through. And so our work is to really listen to and tune into what is it that's being called forth from within me in my life, in my circumstances, in my world. That's the gift that you are. And I want to thank you for being that gift, because it's magnificent, because that's who you truly are. Take a nice deep breath and let's move into our meditation time. So let's just move into that stillness, that silent place within us. As we breathe in and we breathe out, we give thanks that we are one with the very giving nature of the universe. That our very essence and our being is the gift of the divine. It's not something we have to beg or beseech or try to get. It's the essence of who and what we have been called to be. The greatest you that could ever possibly have ever been and ever will be. And you're the only one who's been called to share those gifts in just that way, in just the way that you are, in just the way that you can be, in just the way that you are being encouraged and lifted and pulled and, yes, challenged to be. And you're never given a challenge without the possibility of it strengthening and unfolding and being a blessing through you in just the right and perfect way. So just breathe that knowing in. Feel that faith and that assurance, that knowing that there's something always greater, calling, moving, blessing, and pouring through the very essence of your nature, your Christ self. And so it is. Take a moment now in the stillness of your being to just immerse yourself in the acceptance of that divine giving, that divine flow. In the stillness and in the silence. And one of the most beautiful giving things that we can do is the giving of thanks. So just let your heart be filled with a willingness of giving thanks. Breathe into that heart space and fill it with a gratitude for the blessings that are pouring through and that are ours to share and give in the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you, blessed Spirit. And so it is.